right, you're all set.
Okay, good evening. This is the Rutland Town Planning Commission, and it's July 13th of 2023. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for venturing out on this stormy night, and thanks to you folks joining us on Zoom. First thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed? Okay, getting alerts and little messages sent our way here, because we're in the middle of a pretty bad thunderstorm. Sorry if these things go off on our phones. The next part of the agenda is for public comment, and I don't believe we have any public here that's not already on the agenda. So we'll skip over that and head right down to new business. And after a couple tries, we have Don Folsom with us. I'm sorry about giving you the wrong date last week. But thank you for coming tonight and getting away from some of the work, I guess, in your basement.
Yep.
Tell us what you are requesting of the Planning Commission and a little bit about the grant that you're
Sure.
going for.
There's, I can't remember the exact name of the grant. I think it's the Emerge grant or something like that. They will give businesses up to 10% of the cost of the project to help improvements, as long as it shows that the money's, the project is, people's jobs are dependent upon the project completion. So we have been advised by the state wastewater department that we have to have upgraded wastewater systems and connect to fresh water, because the building was vacant more than 2 years. So they said that the septic that's on site has to fail, whatever that means. It's been working fine for 4.5 years, but they won't allow us to continue to stay on the septic. So along with that, they felt that the on-site well water would probably have issues, and I wasn't really against connecting to the municipal water, because the demand for the restaurant and everything else, I definitely didn't have an issue with that. So we've been moving forward with it, and then we looked at getting this grant. Part of the grant application requested a letter from our local development review board. So that's how I ended up here. Basically, they want something in writing that says that you support the project.
Mhm.
Essentially, if we don't do it and the state were to shut us down because we didn't, of course, there would be 2 businesses that would have to close. The Maple Angus employs somewhere around 10 to 15 people. And we, right now, it's just family, but this winter, we're hoping to have expanded a little bit, and we'll probably have at least 3 people on staff outside of our family. And by family, I have both my in-laws, my wife, myself running, and then honestly, my 10-year-old and 12-year-old are their faces of the business on a regular basis. So it definitely, if it were not to come to pass, it would definitely incur a lot of loss for a lot of people.
Mhm.
I know myself, our family has put everything we own into the building. We've yet to take out any loans against the building because technically we still don't own the building. The Florries are still, they have to open 7 estates in order to close on the property. So it's a long legal thing that I honestly don't know enough about to address. But we're trying to get the money to help offset the costs. The original estimate was about $15,000 for the water connection and about 25 roughly for the wastewater connection.
Mhm.
So far, the water cost us 25 instead of the 15. Hopefully we can keep the wastewater on budget for 25. We estimated our total project cost to be about 45,000. So if we get the grant, we'd get $9,000 to put towards it.
And conceivably, the grant, the 10% could go to both the water and the
Correct.
wastewater.
Yep.
Or either,
Yep.
or,
Either, well, it's one project, really. So yeah, that 10%, 9,000 would go towards the overall project of the water and wastewater connection.
Did I miss something? I thought you said the total would be 45,000.
That was our original estimate.
And the up to 10% would be covered by the grant.
Right. Which would be, or 20%, I apologize, 20%.
Okay.
oh, that's,
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so that's where it comes to 9,000.
yeah.
I would like to just know a little bit more about the business that you, I mean, you
Absolutely.
mentioned a restaurant. I didn't have any
So
background.
this is down the Flory Plaza.
Yeah.
2 years ago, this past Memorial Day, we opened Fortress of Fun, which is a family entertainment center. We've got 2 large bounce houses, bumper cars, a full redemption arcade, a small play structure. We do birthday parties every weekend, even in the summer. We rent bounce houses out to people's homes. And then at the end of the building where back in the day, it was a beverage center at the far end, and then the Rutland Shopper was in there for a while. That space Maple Angus had renovated. Josh and Heather Butler owned Maple Angus, and they went inside, I believe October or November of last year. And honestly, that's the only way we knew that we triggered the wastewater permit, because unfortunately, everything in the state level is in a silo. So you talk to one agency and they don't talk to the other agency, nor do they point you towards the other agency. So when the health department asked for a wastewater permit number for the application, we didn't have one. And that triggered all of this. So yeah, that's in Maple Angus. They, like I said, they've put their heart and soul into it. They've done a lot for, I know, the West Rutland community throughout the years, and they've got a lot of public support. They've had people show up to help us clean out after this flood, and nobody's asked for any.
Is that a sit-down restaurant now?
Yep. Well, they're permitted for 25 seats, but they do a ton of takeout.
Mhm.
They have some amazing maple creamies.
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
side note.
I had the West Rutland, same thing
Yep, absolutely.
with the maple syrup.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions? For Don Folsom? What kind of timetable are you on to get this letter next week? Okay.
Yeah, next week's fine. I submitted the application with Tom Burdett's letter in 2 places. And we'll just submit this as an addendum to that, because it required 2 PDFs in the same location, or 2 PDFs, sorry. Each section needed a PDF, so I attached Tom Burdett's twice, because they wanted a local, Don Chaffee wrote a letter, Tom Burdett wrote a letter, and then they wanted the planning commission to write a letter. So
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we provide a letter of support for this request.
Second,
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. How close is this storm right now?
I can hear it out of my window.
Is it coming this way, Bill?
It's higher height state.
It's getting dark out. It's close.
Okay, let's take a vote while we can here.
Before we vote, can we get a copy of what the grant is
Absolutely.
asking for? Can you send that to Bill?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ready for the vote? All those in favor of giving Mr. Folsom a letter for this grant, please say aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay. Yeah, if you send that to Bill,
I will.
he can get it to me and
Yep.
Well,
I'll
maybe
try to
I can
send that
talk
to you
Dana
tonight,
into
Bill.
writing it.
I
But yeah, that'd be great.
gotta read the rest.
Yeah.
Thank you
and
so much.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thank you for your patience.
Absolutely.
Again.
No problem.
And if you want to wait it out here, you're certainly welcome.
I think I might skip home.
Good
It's
luck.
Castleton before I can.
Ah,
yeah,
Thank you, gentlemen.
take
And
care.
lady.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
okay. So Bill, you're on tornado watch here.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We have Thomas Han with us by Zoom, and he is the developer of the proposed solar array go in off Route 7 North on some of the Thomas farm property. It's between the two used cars operations
Yep.
there. And yeah, I think we probably have some questions for you, Thomas, but if you want to maybe fill in a little bit more than that for what your project is about, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, well, I believe you all received the information packet. So we provided the advance notice filing. So this is just the preliminary site plan that we provide in advance of moving on to a complete CPG application. So just as a bit of background, my company is MHG Solar. We've developed and built approximately 20 projects in Vermont, mostly in the 500 kW net metering size up to, you know, a couple megawatts, kind of like this size. Most of those have been in southwestern Vermont, so kind of Bennington to Rutland. We've done a number of projects over in the slate quarries, ranging from Paulet up to Castleton. So this project, as you can see on the site plan, there is 3 megawatts in size. That's the AC capacity. So that's the size in relation to its grid interconnection. We have, you know, built in so far already the standard setbacks. So those are 50 feet minimum from property lines, 100 feet from roads. And then we have shown on here are the wetlands that have been delineated. So though, you know, wetlands have a standard 50-foot setback as well. We've gone through and completed most of our, we've completed all of our environmental review. We have a little bit more to go as far as a final survey to really nail down some of the exact points here. And we have also some archaeological work to do just to see if there are any constraints from that perspective. So at this point, we have, from our perspective, we've completed most of what we need to develop a completed site plan. We do also have, or as we move towards the complete application, we will complete an aesthetic review. We've done a preliminary review, but obviously we have to do a complete aesthetic review and then make that conform to the town requirements Rutland has a fair amount of information, obviously, in its town plan that relates to solar projects. So we will be matching up our aesthetic review to the requirements listed there and proposing what they call aesthetic mitigation, which really generally means planting of vegetation, so trees, shrubs, those sorts of things, to make sure that we are in conformance with the town plan. So that work will be happening as we move towards the CPG filing. And we've got a couple of other projects that we're working on at the moment. So my expectation is that we will likely not file the CPG for this project until later this fall. They take quite a bit of effort to get the full application completed, and we're kind of in the middle of a number of projects at the moment.
Okay. Would you consider a wider area between Route 7 North and where the panels will be? Or would you consider filling that all in with with trees? Probably.
Well, so a significant portion of it, probably, if you look at the site plan there, you can kind of see them. Probably 2/3 or more is already screened by trees.
Right, but not all of it, right?
Yeah, so obviously there's some topography there as well. And so that's what the aesthetic report would determine and then finalize.
Yeah, we looked at this, the select board looked at this briefly a couple weeks ago and was a little concerned about that setback. You know, with all the traffic on Route 7 there, it being kind of narrow anyway. I think they were hoping that there might be a little more of a setback built in when you get your final application done.
Yeah, so look, I'll be honest with you. We will do everything we can to make sure we follow all the requirements, but I guess I don't really know what you're asking me other than more, and so more is kind of hard for me to respond to. But on this site, as you can see, a huge portion of it is wetlands, right? And so that's area that we can't use for solar. You know, there are other types of activities that in some cases are allowed to be permitted in those types of places. Solar is not one. And so we are pretty space constrained on the site. And so if we just start carving more and more acreage off, it starts to make the project, either it doesn't work or just the cost of the power goes up. And ultimately we will be selling this power to Green Mountain Power. And what we're trying to do is make solar power as cost effective as we possibly can while still meeting requirements. So I'm open to hearing, you know, a specific request, but I'm not going to say categorically that I'm going to agree to it beyond the stated requirements.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got minimum setbacks now, and I guess we're wondering if you would consider expanding those, and would you consider it being slightly smaller in output? You know, it's 3.3 megawatts, right?
Yeah, so we have a 3 megawatt interconnection. The ultimate DC size may vary a little bit. It kind of depends on what panels we ultimately are able to get. And when we go to build the project, you know, each year panel wattage increases a little bit as the technology improves. And so depending on when we get through permitting and then when we go to construct, the DC wattage may vary. The AC system size is pretty well fixed at that 3 megawatts. So could we make it smaller? Yeah, you could always make a house smaller. You could always make a business smaller. Those are certainly things that you can do. Obviously it has an impact. And so it's difficult for me to just say, yes, we can make it smaller. Yes, we'll agree to a setback. I don't really know what that impact is because I don't know really what you're asking for, how much. And ultimately that just drives the cost of the power up. So not to be flippant, right? But ultimately the state is trying to move to 100% or at least 90% renewable energy. We can do that at, try to do it at a low cost, or we can increase costs by various things like increased setbacks, things like that. So it's certainly something we're willing to entertain. I'd want to know what it is that you're specifically requesting, and we could consider it. But
Yeah.
look, I mean,
It's not one of our, I was
go
just going to say, Tom, it's not one of our preferred sites, and some of it's prime ag soil.
Sure.
So we think we're making some concessions already in both those regards, in entertaining this. And sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, look, the preferred siting is really specific to net metering, which is projects that are at considerably higher rates than we would be looking at for a project like this. So it's a little bit apples to oranges. I understand your point about it's not where the town necessarily would desire it if it had total control. We try our best to locate projects in those areas that are preferred, but if the landowners aren't interested in doing solar, then, or if there's not a good interconnection with the utility available, or in the case of some of the preferred sites you've identified are wetlands, we're trying to serve lots of different masters here, right? There's the town, there's interconnection, there's the PUC, there's ANR, there's agriculture, food and markets, there's Department of Historic Preservation. Everybody has their constraints, and we're trying to do our best to work within all of those, to make the project possible. So I understand your point, but I wish we could just come to the town and say, where would you like it? And then we could just go do it there. But unfortunately, that's not really how it works from our perspective.
Okay. Questions? I don't think all of our preferred sites are in wetlands. There's some in the south
No.
part of town.
Yeah, no, not all of it.
are-
But I have looked at it, and there is some significant wetlands that are demarcated as preferred. But certainly not all of them.
Yeah. So, unless there's other questions, I feel like I'm monopolizing this. I'll be going back to I'll be going to a select board meeting next week. What message do you want me to bring to them about the setback issue along Route 7 that's been brought up and the ag soils?
Well, so look, I'm not setback. I guess my question is, what are you asking me for? And because then I have to go figure out how much it's going to cost me. Like, I'm going to have to pay property tax on land that I can't use. Does the town want to give a waiver on property tax on land that we can't use?
I don't think so.
Right. So like, I understand the request, but it's, we're willing to entertain it, but I guess I would kind of say, you can't have both. You can't ask to be paid property tax and then say you can't use the land, or request that we don't use the land. Well, you can, right? But to me, that doesn't seem very fair. So I would say that's sort of my response on that one is, what is it that you're really asking for aside from just more? Like, it's hard are you asking for 200 feet, 110 feet? What's the ask really?
Mhm. Fair enough.
And then on the prime ag soils, I don't know. My point of view on this might not be popular, but I guess I don't really see the problem with putting solar on prime ag. We're not damaging the land permanently. It's a project that will go in for a defined period of time and then it will come out. It's got a pre-funded decommissioning bond to make sure that it comes out. And, you know, I guess my view on that is kind of, we should be treated the same way any other type of development is. So if the town prohibits housing or commercial on prime ag, then I would understand that. But if it's a prohibition specifically on solar or a desire to not have solar on it, then I guess my view is it just doesn't strike me as a particularly fair way to go about it. And then I would just say, you know, having developed a fair amount of solar in Vermont, almost all land that doesn't have trees on it and hasn't been heavily, you know, developed like industrial land or something is prime ag. You know, if the land could be farmed at some point, somebody 200 years ago cleared it because they knew where the good soils were. And so that's, you know, most of the open land and a fair amount of the forested land too is also, you know, considered prime ag. So I understand the desire to not want to have energy generation compete with agriculture, but from a practical perspective, there aren't a lot of good options as far as where you're going to put solar projects that meet, you know, all the different agency criterias and stay off prime ag and also deliver power cost effectively. Because, you know, you can, if you're not concerned about costs, then yeah, there's lots of different things you can do. But generally what we've tried to do is develop projects that can deliver power at, you know, cost effective levels.
Okay.
I do have a question.
So I'm open to having conversations about it, but you know, we're operating within the bounds that have been set for us, and so it's hard for us to kind of proactively just go beyond both those, whether we're talking about setbacks or prime ag.
Mm-hmm. Dana.
So Thomas, I I agree that vague requests or assertions are difficult to deal with. So perhaps you can help me demystify some of the vagueness and tell me within the footprint that we have in front of us on the site plan, how much of the space in this plot have you utilized for the current footprint of your project?
So, I mean, I don't have the exact number off here unless I have it. Sometimes our designer puts it on here. I don't have the exact acreage, but
So I guess the question that I have, if you can't answer it right now, that's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot. But if you can tell me what your parcel acreage is, and then the usable land, what that is, and then how much of that you are currently planning to use, that would be helpful for me
Sure.
as an informed planning commission member to be able to make a decision. Because right now, I mean, it looks like a nice proposal. It looks like it's well thought out. But if there are questions around percentages and distance back and so on and so forth, then for me to be able to chime in and make a determination, I would need to know the mathematical calculations. So
sure.
if you can get
So-
that to Bill or somebody, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so let me just try to answer it directionally here, because I think I understand what you're getting at. And I want to be honest about how we go about this. So just looking at it here, let's just say it's 50-50, right? About half the acreage is wetlands or state mandated setbacks, whether it's 50 feet at property lines or 100 feet from roads. And then obviously you got the wetland down the middle, wetland in the northeast corner, and then the 50-foot setbacks off of those. So just for argument's sake here, let's say 50% of the site is quote unquote buildable or could be built on from a solar perspective, given all the rules and regulations and requirements that we're aware of at this point in time. So
Yep.
how much of that have we tried to use? I mean, we've tried to use every available square foot. The reality is, if you want to be cost effective in producing power, you build the biggest site that you can on the available land. I've got an option to purchase this property. Whether I build a 2 megawatt site or a 3 megawatt site, the person selling it to me is not going to give me a discount on what the property costs. The property costs what it costs. It's a fixed cost. My interconnection to the electric grid, pretty much a fixed cost. I mean, you can move that cost around. Obviously, if you put in a much bigger system or much smaller, but
Right.
it's really not going to change much whether I do 2 megawatts or 3 megawatts at this particular site, because we've done those studies. And all my engineering, all my environmental costs, stormwater, all those things, they're really not going to change. So we have a fair amount of fixed costs. And the way that we
Yep.
ultimately produce cost-effective power is we try to install as much as we can. And the last panel that we install is the most cost-effective panel, because all the ones that came before it picked up all those fixed costs. So you drop a project by, say, 10%, you increase the cost of the power by 15%. So I'll be brutally honest, we're trying to use as much of it as we possibly can.
Yep. And I would gather that from a business perspective. So I appreciate the ballpark figure of 50%, and you're trying to use 50%. So 100% of 50%, I suppose, if that's the way you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I was just curious to know the specific numbers. So thank you.
Yeah, and I can certainly provide those. That's a standard piece of information that would be part of
Sure.
our CPG application, down to the 100th of an acre or whatever it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Thomas, along Route 7, you have some landscaping put in there. The access to the site would be let's see, proposed site access, existing curb cut. So that's the access. So south of that, you have some planting, but then there's a gap. Why is there a gap with the vegetative, the screening there?
So there is, to be honest, if it's a really specific question like that, I would have to check with the landscape architect and see. But the way he does, we use Krebs and Lansing for our plans, and TJ Boyle typically for our landscape design and our aesthetic assessment. And so usually what's going on is if there's a gap, often that's driven by topography. So this site has a couple of rolls in it as you move north-south. And so my guess is that there's a reason, like there's a roll or there's a topographic feature that perhaps blocks that area from view. But that's ultimately the final report will provide pictures, and from different angles to show the idea of where the plantings would go in for particular view sheds.
Okay. Any other questions for Thomas? Any questions of us?
I don't think so at this time. I'm happy to talk about the project at any point. Happy to talk with the select board if they would like to talk about it. This project is, because it's not a net metering, the process is a little bit different. planning commission, select board are welcome to weigh in and participate, but they also don't have to. So,
That reminds, yeah, that reminds me, I think they are very open to doing a site visit, the select board, and I'm sure this group would be too. Is that
Sure.
possible?
yeah, that's fine.
So just to move that forward in the next couple of days, just propose some dates to you.
Okay.
That
Sure.
work, okay.
Yeah, and it just
Okay.
depending on when it works best, either be myself or I have one of our team is Chris Smid, who might also participate.
Great, great, okay. Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll get some weather one of these days that would allow for such a site visit.
Yeah. Try to avoid late afternoon thunderstorms.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much and stay safe.
Thank you.
And
All right,
be in
take care.
touch.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Lots of alarms going off, Bill. Okay. So we have, I don't want to go out there right now.
That was,
Street crossing Fisher Road, so
Oh, no. Where, do you know?
sounds like above,
Oh, geez. Is.
are we onto the Billings Wind Project?
Yes, we are. And this one kind of, this doesn't go through the CPG process. It's a small enough project that it's on a faster track through the Public Utility Commission. So it kind of snuck up on us. And I forget how we first heard about it.
their 45-day notice. That was-
No, they don't have a 45-day notice. It's
Whatever they sent us in the mail.
it's so simple. But so it has been filed with the PUC. It is 2 turbines, 100 feet high off Coeur d'Alene Road.
Emailed it directly to the office.
And it's on the Preston Billings property there. And they couldn't make it tonight. His son sent me this email. And he is Brian Billings. His father's been trying to develop a small wind presence in Rutland County on his property. It has not been easy. Brian, his son, is the force behind this project, as I feel that it is a good way for my father to sustain his 88 acres into the future while making minimal impact in the environment and become green. This is a huge deal for an 87-year-old man who never thought he would get to this point. It's his dream. And he's working with a developer from Middlebury, who I made several, I corresponded with several times and didn't get an answer back. So we don't have a whole lot other than what was sent out in the packet. It is in the middle of Preston's property.
Yeah.
It doesn't, they say that their environmental impact, aesthetic impact indicates that it would not be seen beyond the property.
You're talking about
We have the
this,
property lines.
this description, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that's their application there. They had some technical information that they share as well. So it snuck up on us. It's on a faster track, and the end of the comment period is next week, July 19th. So the select board did glance at this last couple weeks ago. They meet again next week. They asked us to take a look at it, see if there would be any comments. And Mary had to recuse herself because it's part of her family.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 I don't know much about the turbines, but and I don't know what size these are relative to large ones and small ones. But one of the concerns that I've always heard about turbines is the sound.
Mhm.
And I don't know how we address that or find out
Yeah.
more about it.
Other than to take, I mean, they indicate that, right, that they meet state standard, they don't exceed state standards. Right?
It's on here somewhere. I don't know what the 48.5 decibels
And they
at an
also
observation
say,
distance of 60 meters.
right,
So at 60 meters,
Yeah, decibels of 40.
I
48 decibels.
don't have a good feel for 40.
How do they characterize decibel sounds? Ambient noise, it runs at 15 to 20 decibels. That's just
Okay,
hearing this in
this?
the
all
background.
right.
Okay. Concerts, on the other hand, loud concerts go up to 100, 120
Okay,
decibels.
okay.
So that gives you an idea of the two extremes.
So just based on your example, 48 would be
Three
maybe
times.
3 times the sound that we're getting here
Right.
constantly.
48 is
Potentially.
Approximately the sound of a refrigerator.
That's about right.
and the application says all neighboring residences are beyond the point of the sound produced by the wind turbines, which would be well below the ambient background noise of the wind.
Is that-
And
is
would
that-
be
is that in here?
undetectable in most conditions.
Oh, yeah, it is on here. Yep, I
Yeah.
see it.
And I'm not sure that these are large turbines. I mean, I don't know whether a 100-foot turbine is whether it's one of the very large ones or or something that's smaller.
Yeah, it's not, I think that they start at about 100 feet,
Right.
Okay,
just to get
so
at a
it's one
certain
smaller one.
altitude.
okay.
I did pull out some figures. The diameter of the blades is 31.5 feet for
Mhm.
each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for comparison, what was projected for the knob? There was a Crampons knob over in Castleton. Those were bigger than
Sounds
those.
like larger than this, yes.
They were much larger than that.
That was like a
I haven't-
commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Operation.
I've
yeah.
visited and had a tour of one of the commercial ones, not, go inside, just around it. But the bottom is of the commercial ones is huge. Just the stand that it's, so the foundation itself is very large.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it says producing 48.5 at an observation distance of 60 meters.
Yeah.
Applying the inverse square law for each doubling of distance from the point source, the sound pressure level decreases by approximately 6 decibels. Thus, it follows that at an observation distance of 400 feet, the effective sound pressure level would be 42.5. Why is it? Oh, I see.
And there's large lots up
Each doubling
there.
distance.
It's
Oh.
very wooded. I'm not sure there would be much of a visibility factor. And the large lots would cut down on the decibel level
Mhm.
because of the distance.
the distance, yeah.
And if there's nothing near there, if there are no homes nearby, relatively few people are going to hear anything.
Right. I mean, it looks to me like they're putting it, Preston wants to put it essentially in his front yard. Put
is that
down
right?
in his front yard.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that the crows outside of our bedroom window in the trees from probably April 1st through November 1st make a heck of a lot more noise than a wind turbine would. And if we could put up a wind turbine and stop the crows, I think I would do that. Just kidding. I'm just giving it a comparison.
I
At 5
understand.
o'clock in the morning, a crow in a tree
Yeah.
100 feet from your window Makes a lot more noise than a turbine. But anyway,
So I guess the select boards would like to hear from us and whether the town should submit any comments. We're up against the gun. There wouldn't be any time to do a site visit for sure. I've tried to reach out to the people involved here and with limited success. So what do we think we should tell the select board?
what's the ask?
The ask is whether we want to submit any comments
Okay.
by July 19th.
I am comfortable enough not submitting any comments or asking any questions. I don't have, based on what I read, I don't have any objections. I don't have any concerns personally, but that's just me.
Barb?
Yes,
We really don't have a heck of a lot to go on to know, much about it, but I recall back, a number of years ago, when I first came in as a lister, there was I don't know what the details were, but there was a tower of some sort. I'm not sure if it was just for TV or, in fact, I think the fire department might have had an antenna. Whoops. Getting an alarm. I'm not sure if you're gonna hear it or not, but. Okay. But it was just right next door to that, and there was quite an ordeal that went on when somebody wanted to, and they built a home which was in West Rutland, but it was just over the line and very close, and unfortunately, I don't remember what really happened, but there was a real issue to do with the tower that was up there. And I don't know where it went, but it was right in that same neighborhood, right next door to where Preston lives. But just, I wish I could recall just what it was, but there was a lot to do with it, and I don't know which way it went or whatever. And I'm not even sure if that tower is still there anymore. But this, if the people down below aren't going to be affected by this, I mean, I guess that, they're the ones that are, the closest to it and whatnot. People down on Coeur d'Alene Road and Boardman Hill, so to speak.
right.
But we don't have a heck of a lot to hang our hat on. It's just.
Right. And yeah, this abbreviated application, it primarily goes to adjacent landowners.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why we didn't hear about it for a while.
So apparently they're okay with it. It appears. If the adjacent landowners are fine with it, then I guess there's not a whole lot we can.
Well, we don't know that the adjacent landowners are okay with it. They just haven't contacted us.
Well, that's true
And
too,
they-
because if worst thing could ever happen if it became an issue with the adjacent landowners, it's a forever issue. 24 hours a day, and certainly we don't want that.
Yeah, I don't think we have a good grasp on what the neighbors do think. And so they would have the same deadline to get comments in, or they could intervene in this,
Mhm.
Well,
take it
there's
to
a
a legal
request,
level.
they're listed as one of the ones who could request, who they could submit a notice of intervention or something to that
Right.
effect with the commission by the deadline.
Right. So we're not going to know much until
So that
after that
happens.
deadline.
And I have a sound concern because I remember sound being a major issue with it. And I just would like to get an unbiased opinion of
Hmm,
the sound.
hmm. Dana, do you have something?
So for the last 5 minutes, I've been running my decibel meter. Just because I have one. And with all of our talking and the running of the heat pump, we have averaged, we have started between 50 and 70 decibels. Okay. That is far above the noise that these are projected to produce at 200 feet. Anything beyond that would then drop that decibel reading. So it goes between, it averages for us between 50 and 70, between a whisper at the lowest end and normal conversation at the highest end.
Hmm.
So in other words, if you're talking about nuisance sound, it's far below a crow out your bedroom window, which I'm going back to because that is much louder. And I think that if this is really true, that the maximum decibel reading would be 40, whatever it was, 48.5, then I have no concerns. I mean, your refrigerator makes that much noise. I mean, as Bill said, he checked it. That was the sound of a refrigerator operating. And, you know, if I lived right underneath it, I don't think that I would be concerned about that noise level. If you live in a city, I used to live in a city when I was a kid growing up, there was a constant noise of cars and trucks going down my street. And for comparison, our a quiet street or home is above the level that those turbines would generate in terms of decibels. So that is actually below the normal conversation that we're having. So that's all I have for analytical data.
Yeah.
But once again, I don't see a concern if these facts are accurate.
It's the equipment that's rated. You know, those decibel levels come from back in.
And decibels, the way we're producing them, that rise and fall are different than a constant. And I don't know if it's even loud enough for that to be a concern, but I just like to hear that from some independent source rather than.
There's also the shadow flicker that can
Yes.
bother neighbors. And there's just one sentence in here about that it would not be an issue.
It has a lot to do with distance and size of the
Right,
turbine, of the
yeah, the blades, yeah.
So let me do one more study. Of course, this goes up above the, what did I say, 73? The average was 63 decibels for that 5-minute running period. If we just stop talking, or if I stop talking, for the next 30 seconds, I can get a read on what the sound level is of the hum of the heat pump. Okay, I think that's good enough for me. With nobody talking and just getting the noise from the heat pump,
Mhm.
the range is from 45.7 to 47.3.
Hmm.
So at its loudest, the noise produced by the turbines would be equivalent to that noise at our distance.
At our distance and at the turbines distance of
200 feet.
200 feet.
So if
Well-
anybody is within 200 feet, they would hear something like this.
Yeah. what I could do is try to get a hold of the developer.
Yep.
And see if we can get some independent numbers about the decibel levels and about shadow flicker. And how they can say that it's not an issue, because there's no data there at all for that one.
Yes, and whether frequency has something to do with sound as opposed to just decibels. And I mean, it's something I don't have a lot of background on, and even though there's a lot of value in your measurements, Dana, I just don't think I know everything. It's just,
I'm just saying that this is a point of comparison that I
yeah,
can
no, it's
relate to.
good.
I actually got this when I was middle school principal, and we had to do sound checks on our room for students with hearing impairments.
Ah, okay. It's good.
And the frequency, what do you mean by that, Sherman? The frequency of the,
The sound.
The sound
constant
waves,
sound, yeah.
the sound waves.
okay,
I don't know how frequency relates to decibels.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I
You're talking about the sound frequency,
the sound
the sound
frequency.
wave frequency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very low on the spectrum.
Well, Barb, you know,
Okay.
his house is way up on top of the hill. It's quite a drive to get up to him. He's certainly way above everybody, you know, on Coeur d'Alene Road. He's up there all by himself. So
mm,
probably the only things that's gonna hear this are the birds, things that.
yeah,
And the other question is, if none of the neighbors are concerned, if none of the neighbors express a concern,
Right.
I don't think we have enough to get to say anything also.
right, right,
Yep, I agree.
okay. I'll try to get some more information in time for the select board meeting, and then
Yeah, because this will
Report
be
back.
next Wednesday.
next, the 19th is, yeah,
Next
Wednesday, yeah,
Yeah, that's right after the select board meeting.
right. Okay, we'll wrap up that discussion.
Good discussion. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, thanks for all the calculations.
It's the only way I can make the certain things.
No, that was good.
So for announcements, the fireworks didn't go off
I heard that.
as planned for the 4th of July, but they will go off the evening of the townwide celebration
Oh, that's
on
nice.
August 19th. That's still the plan.
That's a good idea.
So, and then are we, for all of the energy related vendors and such, are we still okay having them there? And that there's still gonna be room in the parking lot and all?
There should be plenty of room, yes.
And we're not gonna surprise anyone on the townwide celebration committee by having them there.
I think they know there's more there was additional vendors planned, so it should be fine, yeah.
Okay,
You know, it should not be a surprise.
okay.
Shouldn't want them to bring it up on Tuesday and say like, you know, hey, we got these great other vendors lined up, and they'll be like, great.
Yeah. And on the agenda also on Tuesday is the short-term rentals ordinance. We'll see where
Do you
that
want
goes.
people to
Hmm?
attend? Do you want members of the planning commission to attend?
Oh, I'm not sure where you certainly
No,
are
no,
welcome.
It's not a question of whether we are interested in attending. It's a question, it's a leadership question as to whether you believe that it is necessary for the planning commission to have a bigger presence than you at
Mhm,
the,
mhm.
at this meeting, based on what you know about the select board and what they're thinking or not. So that's
Yeah,
really my question.
Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. They haven't asked that many questions recently of us. It would not hurt to have other planning commission
Okay.
members there.
That's on the 18th, right?
Yeah. Tuesday night.
What do you think, Bill? Okey dokey. I guess I know what I'm putting on my calendar.
Okay. Any other news to share?
Just a quick question. The fireworks will be that evening.
That
Correct.
evening, yeah, the celebration will kind of end at 2. And then everybody will, Bill and others will get ready to,
Yeah, they'll,
Get
Marcel
everybody-
will be there all by, they usually get there around 2 or 3 and start setting up, so that'll work out well. Yeah.
and they'll go off at dusk. Okay. Okay, let's go to the minutes of June 22nd.
Move to approve the minutes of June 22nd.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Look pretty clean to me.
Did a nice job, Bill.
Yes, thank you, Bill.
Is. We had a motion in a second.
Yep.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written by Bill Sweet? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Great.
Barbara, just going back to the select board meeting. Knowing that you're not sure when that will be discussed, can you give me a ballpark, or Bill, can you give me a ballpark? Whether we need to be there at 6 o'clock or 6:30 or 6:45,
Probably not gonna be right at the beginning.
which is 6 o'clock. So when they finish all of that procedural stuff, is that 6:30 or,
Depends.
I know it can depend.
And you know, sometimes they just wait for my turn.
May come up, yeah,
And-
that's probably the most likely place it would come up, and if you're there and others are there, then that would probably be when it would come up. That would make the most sense.
when
Okay,
they-
most likely during Barbara's, okay.
Yeah,
And that's during the department presentations, right?
right, right. And I think I'm 4th or 5th on the list.
So that would be at the earliest 6:30.
You
Can't say
can't,
that.
yeah, it's,
It's hard to say, because it all depends. It's not a guarantee. It just depends on how quickly things happen. Sometimes they go fast and sometimes they don't.
sometimes they go directly to the department heads.
Yeah.
And
Oh, they do.
sometimes they wait till the end of the
Well,
meeting. almost
whenever
the
I
end
have attended, maybe it's just me. If I show up, it will be at least an hour.
of the- Dana's law.
Well, I know that when I've replaced you a couple of times, Barbara, I've sat there for a while before I come on, and
It can
all right,
happen.
I will show up. I won't be there at 6 o'clock with bells on, but
Okay, I think we're all set and are adjourned for the evening.
motion to adjourn. Give me a
Second,
second. You oppose, okay.
Yeah, we're done.
Second, all right, was that you seconding my motion, Howard?
yes, yep, I did.
Thank you, Howard.
Okay, everybody stay safe.
Yes, indeed.